to A Road Less Traveled podcast. I am your host, Hilary Haron, and with us today we have Ellena Sweet with Fresno Acura, Marin Acura, Mercedes-Benz and Modesto, and Subaru Modesto.
Modesto Subaru, yeah, you're close.
Awesome. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can you please give us a little idea of your background, education, and role in your current position?
Sure. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer for our group of automotive dealerships. I have gone to college. I have a master's degree in international business. It's really just a lot of work all the time, you know? So for us, because of the fact that our dealerships are spread out amongst Northern California, I'm on the road a lot. So my office is here in Fresno, and I'm based in Fresno, but at the same time, I'm rarely here. So I was in Modesto the other day. I was in Marin, San Francisco the day after that. I mean, it's just making sure that we have everything we need at every single store, compliance-wise. And compliance goes not just into environmental health and safety, but also into sales and marketing as well.
Do you find many other women in that, it specifically in the compliance world?
Absolutely not.
Is that kind of a lonely road?
I would say compliance in itself is a lonely road. Compliance, especially in automotive, I mean, I'm sure this goes against other industries as well, but compliance is just now starting to have its moment. That people are starting to understand why it's so important and why we should be caring about these things, and which is the law. But you know. So yeah, I mean, it's lonely. It's interesting. There's very few women in it. The only people that are in it are men, and it's still. But when you look at it, it's very tiny.
Do you find that it's a challenge to be, I mean, in the automotive industry overall, let me back up a little bit.
Sure.
In the automotive industry overall, statistically, there are very few women in leadership roles. And you've taken on some industry leadership roles. Do you find that finding those roles and maintaining them and getting into them, is it difficult? Is it
Of course.
challenging?
I mean, it's always hard. And I think on top of being young, being a female, there's always going to be those people that push back and say, why? Why you? Why now? Why is this happening? But it's also something of, we want to push forward and do this the right way. And it's not having to push through gender barriers or anything like that. It's because I want to do it the right way, right? So, yes, it is lonely. It is something where we don't have the same recognition that anyone else does. For me, I was lucky enough to be raised by my mother in the automotive industry, and she went through worse than I ever have in terms of what she went through in the 80s and 90s, and God knows what else she went through. But it's something I've learned a lot from her. And it's something where we're always going to continue to push through it. So, yeah, it's hard.
You've gotten a degree in international business, and I mean, you could have gone anywhere and done anything. So I guess, why automotive?
That's why I chose international business to begin with. I mean, for me, I think just growing up and seing how the business worked. I mean, I fell in love with cars at a very young age.
It's hard not to do.
They're gorgeous. But, I mean, that's why I chose international business as my degree, because I knew that we were going global. I knew that things were going to change, and so that's why I chose international business. So for me, it was never really a choice. It was just this is.
Like the timeline. It wasn't a choice of what, it was a choice of when.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. It just, that's what I wanted. So, I mean, I could have gone into any industry. But the only one that really makes my heart sing is cars.
So
Revs my engine.
revs your engine. I like that. Yes, we're using that.
Yeah. My mom's dog's name is Rev. So,
Oh.
yeah, rev your engine is real.
So it permeates every part of your life.
Oh, we're car people.
I mean,
If you
there's
couldn't
worse things to be.
Yeah.
There's worse things to be.
So,
Your mom being in the business has probably been a blessing to see another woman, breaking barriers and continuing to show up. Other than your mom, have you had mentors in the business that have been pivotal for you, even if they're not women, that have really been like, I can call this person and I can, they're going to push me to do what I know I need to do, but I don't want to right now.
well, I mean, the easiest answer to that question is you, of course.
Not just me, but other people.
No, I know. But, I mean, in terms of how I've become more involved in the industry and stuff like that, that was really you. You're the one that dragged me along and we're like, oh, you do this. Go for it. So I would contribute a lot of my success to you forcing me to do it. When my mom's telling me, like, you don't have to do that, like, just stay at home. And I'm like, but Hilary says, like, so, yes, I have mentors in the industry. Being a third generation family, automotive, I mean, my grandpa's still a huge part of my life. And I talk to him all the time about stuff. When my mom says don't do it, my grandpa says do it. So I have that give and take with both of them. So I have that. But yeah, I mean, just being more involved and doing stuff on the state level like we have done with CNCDA, I have built many mentors out of it. Brian, John, I mean, they down the list. I mean, I talk to them on a daily basis and we talk about what works in their store, what works in mine, what doesn't, how do we move forward. So yeah, I have a lot of that.
And family business is unique in all the ways. Sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it's a blessing.
It's always a challenge.
even the good things are challenging. And oftentimes we end up, or at least I have ended up kind of in a silo where I'm like, this is the only way because it's how we've always done it. Yeah. Have you found success in challenging the norms?
Yeah.
Even if it's exhausting?
It's exhausting. Sometimes it's really hard to challenge the norms, but that's the only way we make change happen. And when you're in a business that's been around for decades, change is necessary. And that's really hard to break to people sometimes, whether it's your mother or it's managers that have been with you for 20, 30 years, et cetera, of now we're going to change the way that we do everything. It gets hard. But at the same time, we're showing that we can make positive change by just doing things slightly different or changing our software or doing things like that. And I'm in the middle of that right now. One of my stores is that we are bringing in a whole new software. I'm going through training. I'm doing all this stuff. And you have to get the buy-in. That's the problem, is your employees will sit there and say, no, I don't want to do this. This works just fine. And we have to sit as managers and say it's not working. And to get that buy-in is where it really comes down to. So I think we're doing okay with it, but it's always interesting to throw a wrench in it.
Do you find that women are more willing to buy in?
100%.
They're kind of more willing to be like, okay, this is better. We'll change.
100%.
And on kind of that same note, do you guys seek out other women to work in your stores or, to engage on your leadership teams?
Yeah, so one of the things my mom and I have talked about is that we want to have a female in every single department at our stores. So if you're talking about automotive, that means you have your admin office, but then you have sales, parts, and service, detail, etc. We're trying to have at least one female in every single department.
I think that's so important for a bottom line.
It is, but it's also something like you can't just be like, oh, well, now I'm passing up great talent because you're not a female.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is something that it covers our bottom line and makes sure that our entire staff understands that this is not just automotive. This is a female automotive.
Yeah, it's a bigger picture. It's like you're not going to take somebody who is good for a role out of the role just to put a woman in because she's a woman.
Correct.
But there are so many qualified women out there who don't even consider automotive as a career path.
That's some of the stuff that you and I have worked on, and that's about changing the narrative and also letting young people know that having a career in automotive is something worthwhile. It's not just changing oil or washing a car. It can be a very lucrative career if you put your mind to it.
I mean, the average automotive, not including the C-suite, the average automotive yearly income is $107,000.
Exactly.
It's not a bad.
No, it's better than doing something else.
It's not a bad place to be. Do you guys have female technicians currently?
Currently, yes.
In all the stores or a couple of stores?
So in the 4 stores, I have 4 females. I just lost one at the Fresno store. She left because she got married or moved or something. But regardless of the other...
Hopefully it was moved. Hopefully marriage is not what's making it.
I don't think it was marriage. I think she moved. I wasn't that close with her. But regardless, out of the other 3 stores, I have 5 female technicians. And we're looking to fill a spot now in Fresno. So I'm hiring.
There's, through the state association, California New Car Dealers Association, that I know you sit on the board for, there is some scholarship opportunities. And I know that some of the work that they're doing is to generate interest in women, getting them a little bit more into the technical side. Do you find that what is technical now is not what technical used to be? So it's not, turning a wrench. It's more knowing a computer. And do you think that the women who have the opportunities to come into this field, do you think that they're seeing it that way? Or is there kind of the misconception?
I don't think that anyone's seeing it that way. I think most people look at being a technician of the same way that they always have, of turning a wrench, as you said. But when it comes down to like what it actually is today and how cars are built, it really is just about technical. So how do you use a computer? Do you understand like the actual software behind it? That's what goes into it. And most people don't understand that. And so that's where, like what you're saying, what I do with CNCDA, we're trying to have a broader education and teach kids and at the high school level that you could do this. Anyone could do this. As long as you understand it and can figure out how to work the keyboard, then yeah, you could do it. I mean, I have to send texts on training all the time because everything changes so quickly. So yeah, I think we could, and that's what we're working on, is changing the narrative and letting people know that you can work on a car. You can figure it out. It's not the same thing anymore of, putting a dipstick in and this is how your oil changes.
What's with the oil?
I mean, yes, that still exists, but there's so many other aspects to being a technician today. So yeah, we're working on it.
I'm going to pivot a little bit from the technical side to the C-suite. In the automotive world, it's about 8% of dealer principals are female. What, in your opinion, is barring women from either taking on those roles or accessing them, or what do they not have access to get them there?
Oh, that's a great question.
Is it a universal question or is it like a specific industry question?
I would say maybe a universal question, but in terms of automotive, I think it is true how much there is that stark difference between it. There are so few women that are in the C-suite. And I think a lot of it has to come down to education, and I'm not talking about education of the female. I'm talking about education in general, of saying that, you know, women don't understand cars or women don't understand the industry. All of that is nonsense, in my personal opinion.
Well, you guys have obviously proved different.
We try
for multiple generations.
But at the same time, it's it happens to me all the time when I'm at a meeting or whatever, and someone's like, "Oh, you're a dealer."
What does that mean? Is it because I'm blonde?
Yeah, because I'm tall, blonde, and young. Oh my gosh, they're just like, "No way." It's like they're gobsmacked by it, and to me, I think that is the most hurtful thing, that we could never do it, that you would never expect us to do it.
But you're doing it.
But we're doing it. Exactly. And no matter what they say, we're going to continue doing it. But so, to answer your question, what is the thing that holds us back?
Other than other people. Do you find that sometimes it's our own things that are in our own heads? Like, I'm not ready. I'm not old enough. I'm not
Sometimes.
educated enough, or I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation with you multiple times, but I think it's also what you get back from the people that you're around, right? Of, oh, you're so young and female and blonde or whatever. But it's those things that add on to it. I mean, for me, for sure, like I felt that many times of, I'm too young to be doing this, or I haven't learned enough. I don't have enough experience. Nepotism, whatever. There's so many different things that come into play. But yeah, that definitely happens. But I think overall, it's the environment that we're placed in that creates those feelings.
What do you do to combat those feelings or those?
I call you.
Those days. I'm going to check it in the F-it bucket and I'm out of here.
I call Hilary. No, I mean, I have those feelings a lot of the time, and I'll call my mom. Not helpful.
We won't tell her to watch this.
Trust me, she'll watch it. Love her to death, but she'll just tell me to buck up and figure it out. I mean, she had to do it herself. I've got to do it myself. So there's that. I mean, but otherwise it's more of just, it's that grin and bear it sort of thing. And I also think that's something that's really not fair when it comes to this industry, because do men have to grin and bear it? No, because they don't have to grin and bear anything.
They just naturally feel like they belong.
Yeah, exactly. But for us, when things are hard or you have to go through it, we grin and bear it. And that's where it doesn't really make sense. But at the same time, guess what we do?
Grin and bear it.
Exactly.
Some manufacturers have programs that are focused on moving women into leadership roles, or they want to get them qualified to have one of their dealerships or to become a franchisee. In your experience, have you found that some of those programs, they only exist so that they can say they have a program, and that they perhaps make the playing field even more difficult?
I don't know about making the playing field more difficult, but I will agree with the first part that they have a program to have a program. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, for me, being third generation and a second generation female, we have to do our own work, and we have to work hard to get there. So when they put programs like this out, it just kind of feels like they're doing it for show. I don't know a single female that's gone through it personally. I personally don't know someone that's gone through it that is successful at this point. I'm sure they exist, but at this point, I don't know them. I don't think it's necessary.
If we're just looking at merits, then maybe it shouldn't be like that.
I would rather earn it.
I mean, define earn it.
Oh, good question. Because earn it, how am I earning it if I'm technically in a family business?
I don't mean it that way. I mean,
no, but
define earn it when it comes to a franchise. Like, if we're talking about a boys' club, and typically people are drawn toward other people that look like them, right? Like that's their friend group, that's their peer group, that's whatever it is. So if that's how decisions are being made, define earn it. You wearing baggy pants and a ball cap?
Yeah. I would say earn it basically means that you're putting in the hours, you're putting in the time, you understand how the business works. It's not something of you just show up and it's handed to you. And I'm not saying that that's what that program is either. It's more of that for me, and the way that I have come up in automotive is that we put in those long hours that, we stay at the dealership till 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. Who knows? But it's putting in the time. It's understanding the customers. It's understanding the industry trends. It's being able to take care of your customers and your employees at the same time. So to me, earning it is earning other people's respect.
How do you manage that interpersonally, I guess? What do you do when you need a break? What do you do to recharge? Because there's more to life, right? Yes, the grind is great. And, when you're from a family business, there's certain things we feel we have to do. But what do you do when you need to recharge?
I go back to the office. That's a really good question. I probably should do more to take a break and recharge. But for the most part, I'm usually just back in my office or at one of the stores, or, I change it up. Instead of the Fresno store, I'm at the Modesto store.
So I have my me time in the car.
Yeah. I listen to my true crime podcasts while I'm driving from store to store.
Okay.
But no, I really should do a better job of taking care of me. But for the most part, it comes down to, taking a weekend and it's almost winter. So I'll be skiing a lot.
Okay.
In the summer, we'll go hiking or something like that, camping. But yeah,
get outdoors.
Outdoor time where I can't have a phone, I can't have service. That's how I get away. Because if I have service, they'll find me.
This might be a question for our next interaction, but maybe you let them find you.
No. That doesn't help me recharge.
Yeah.
When they find me, I have more work to do. So no, I try to go places where they can't get me. But half the time, they find me anyways.
So kind of on that note, if we're encouraging women to join the industry, but then we're like, it could be like total mental burnout.
No, it's not. It's just I make it a mental burnout. Not for everyone. Just me.
How do we attract more women to this industry, especially with, there has been a movement probably pre-COVID, but it's really been highlighted post-COVID with, hybrid work or work from home or, I don't like to use the word balance because I don't think there is balance. Like you have to transition from one thing to another. But, as we attract women to this industry, do you feel like those things are becoming more available, more prevalent?
Personally, I don't really understand how the whole hybrid or remote work actually functions in automotive, because everything that we do on a day-to-day basis is so hands-on. So, like, trust me, I just had COVID. I'm negative now. But trying to work from home, awful. You can't do it. I'm literally was like a FaceTime head floating, like, you can't do it. So in terms of that perspective of if a female is going to want to have some sort of hybrid remote work, etc., I don't think that automotive is it. We do so much stuff on a day-to-day basis that is hands-on, even if you're working in admin, even if you're doing, all, doesn't matter.
Like
Whatever
sensitive document handling, there's things where it can't be.
You can't do it. And that creates a whole, don't get me started on compliance because I will go into a dark hole about it. But I think that in terms of attracting people to it, it's that no one really understands what automotive actually does. It's that thing in the corner, I got to go to my oil change. I've got to do whatever. No one actually thinks about what goes into that on a day-to-day.
Especially when you're not buying a new car. Like when you buy a new car, you're really excited. And you're like, yeah.
But
when you have to go in after to get service, you're like, it's so bad.
But it's a necessity. It is something that's important in your life, and you have to take care of it. And so I think in terms of attracting more women to it or more people in general, it really comes down to the education and letting people know exactly what we do. Like, we don't just sit there and wait for you to have an oil change. Like, there's so much more that goes into it. There's, parts, service, sale, there's everything.
And then it all has to come together somewhere.
Yeah, and we all have to work together and collaborate. And so I think people just don't really understand, the bigger picture of it, which I get, but that's my day-to-day. So it's important, I think, to educate people on what that means. And that's what we're trying to do. Teaching kids of, you know what? You don't want to go to college? You don't have to. You can come to our car college,
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it, but they really just need to be open to the idea that there's more than just it's not just changing oil. You're rebuilding a car. You could be taking a transmission completely apart. You could be the one that's taking care of all of the ordering for a recall on the airbags. There's so much that goes into our day-to-day in automotive. And we just need to educate them on what that is. And that's how we can attract people into the industry.
Well, I think the more people know, the easier that the rule makers, essentially, for each company, let's say, can adjust scheduling. I mean, not every job has to be at 9 to 5. It doesn't have to be, it can be 3 or 4 days a week. I mean, I've seen a lot of alternative schedules lately. Do you guys have alternative schedules?
We do.
And is it something that you offer, or that is kind of a case-by-case thing?
Currently, it's more of a case-by-case thing. I wouldn't say it's something that we just advertise or offer. It's more of, if we need to tailor something, then we will. But it's not something where I'm just like, hey, you want to work 2 days a week? Come on in. No, that doesn't really fly. But overall, it is something where, and I think that's the benefit of being a family business, is that we can make those adjustments when we need to. It's not something where it's a major corporate thing and we have to play by the book. We do what we want when we need to.
You have your eye. I mean, being a family business, you have your eye, knowing what you need from your family, knowing that there's times that you need to step away. Maybe you have a little bit more consideration for staff who has to do the same thing.
Yeah. So we're very aware that every single one of our employees have their own lives and families and their own things that they need to take care of. And so they come to us, and whatever they need, we'll make sure that we try and take care of it, always.
What advice would you give to little Ellie?
Don't grow up.
Absorb it all while you're young.
I don't know. Little me, I think it's the same person, to be honest. Like, I was always in the dealership as a kid, and that's all I ever wanted to do. So I guess I did it. But I would also say advice, talk less, listen more.
I think that's a challenge for like literally everybody.
Yeah. Talk less, listen more. I'm gonna remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
What type of encouragement would you give to a woman who is looking to come into this industry, or who is looking for something that is something she hasn't considered before? How would you plug automotive how would you get somebody on this road less traveled?
Nice plug there.
Thank you.
I don't know. I would say that for a female that's trying to come into automotive, it's always going to be hard. There will always be more men in the room than you.
Well, at least for the foreseeable future.
For now. We're working on that, though. Keep your head high. Listen to what they have to say, and then negate it.
And tell them they're wrong.
Exactly. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years is it's one thing, like I just said, listen, talk less, listen more. But at the same time, when you're in the room, if you don't say anything at all, then you'll never learn. And they will never learn who you are. So sometimes it's important to speak up and say what you feel or what you think they're doing wrong. I mean, trust me, sometimes they're doing things wrong. It happens. We've been there.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have a voice and be able to hold your head high and speak up and do those things.
I think that's really good advice. Thank you for spending your morning with us and giving us your perspective and your automotive experience.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.